Welcome to Meet My Friend with Daddy Porter. And I'm Daddy Porter. And I am here with one of my esteemed colleagues, to say the least, in craft beer. Her name is Julia Herz. She's the author of this fantastic book that we're going to get into later, Beer Pairing. It's fantastic. We'll get into this later. Also going to talk about where craft beer is. This got to put this here at the bottom. Happy American Craft Beer Week. Part of the reason why Julia agreed to talk with me today is because it's Happy American Craft Beer Week, and the Brewers Association has a bunch of initiatives that she would like to talk about. And man, I'm drinking this Puff Tart XL Imperial Ice Sour from the Brewing Project, which is wow, fantastic, great for an afternoon. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce the craft beer program director for the Brewers Association, which is Ms. Julia Herz.
Hi, Greg.
How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for elevating me from the backstage green room to your studio, your house.
Yes. I hope you feel comfortable here.
Yes.
So we might as well just jump right in. Happy American Craft Beer Week to you.
Happy American Craft Beer Week right back. You're giving me a great opportunity to have a lunchtime beer. I got a Bohemian Pilsner from Church Street Beer Works. It's a brew pub in Pennsylvania, and Sean Casey is on the board of directors of the Brewers Association. And what a beauty this is to taste at 12 o'clock on a Thursday.
Cheers. And I got me, as I said, a Puff Tart, a nice Imperial Sour, big sour, big tart, very nice raspberry, not overwhelming, assertive raspberry, but very, very nice and refreshing.
Great.
So, Julia, what does the Brewers Association have cooked up for American Craft Beer Week this year?
Yeah, so May 11th to the 17th is American Craft Beer Week. It's been around since 2006. This year, it was reimagined in all ways, shapes, and forms because of the era and the COVID crisis, frankly, that we are in, and it's affecting many craft breweries and all beverage and hospitalities and small businesses are in the same boat. But what we're encouraging everybody to do this week, and you have time, you too can help, hashtag give craft beer. And we'd love you to commit to giving craft beer from an independent brewery anywhere in the U.S. and just enter that information on craftbeer.com and you will be able to be counted and showing the support for small brewery businesses this, frankly, and all week long, all year long.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And so we have that. Is there anything else that the Brewers Association is involved in and doing as far as let me push up the website here.
Yeah, share the website's great. When you click to give on craftbeer.com, literally if you scroll down, you'll just see a little form. You will get an email of lots of other things that you can consider doing. We have everything from an untapped badge for American Craft Beer Week to a Believe in Beer Fund, which is a relief fund for breweries most in need and state Brewers Guild. If you wanted to donate, you'll get a link to that. So that's kind of a big deal. But making sure the craft brewers feel your support and, frankly, sales this week is the top call to action and the most important. Most breweries that have been able to reopen in some form are doing curbside sales, delivery, and to go. And so committing to give one beer, you can give it to yourself. That's easy enough. Or commit to give to somebody else, and then encouraging your friends and family to do so is the biggest ask. And then sharing that on social to show your pride behind it and keeping the momentum going.
Absolutely. And can you, our friend Chris Sands, we both met him at the BBC.
Yeah.
Our friend Chris Sands talked, I had a conversation with him about 2 weeks ago, I believe it was. I don't know, sometimes days blur, as obviously you can probably relate to. But we talked 2 weeks ago, and he brought up the whole idea about supporting our Brewers Associations, our local ones, our state ones. Do you want to speak to a little bit more about that one too?
Sure, it's a great one. The state Brewers Guilds, and there's 50 now. As of the 2013-2014 era, we finally had a state guild in every state representing the brewers' interests in those individual states. Those state guilds have become instrumental in advancing what breweries are able to do regulatory-wise and legislative-wise on the state level. They've also been instrumental in getting us all to have unique and special beers, right? In Colorado, where I'm talking to you from my home today in Lyons, Colorado, the Colorado Brewers Guild had to cancel their Collab Fest that is normally, held first quarter of the year. And what an amazing advancement and example of innovation on beers that festival is. So these state Brewers Guilds are really not just about advancing the laws so they can help craft breweries do what they've got to do, but also helping us as beer lovers have the best opportunity and crack at innovative beers from the brewers in each state. So it's really important to help them. And the Believe in Beer Fund, which is through Bottle Share. You can just Google Believe in Beer and Bottle Share. That is going through the end of American Craft Beer Week and is still open right now. And we certainly haven't seen a big, robust dollar amount because dollars are so thin everywhere right now. But we still feel like we have a good opportunity to get people thinking about that this week. And there it is.
All right. And when people say how does that look, meaning how does it look to support your local Brewers Association? And I have that answer because I did it last week, which is I became a member of the Wisconsin Brewers Guild. I was a member a long time ago, but I had made mine lapse. So I went back this week. I think it was $25. And it was just a membership, and they usually what happens is, and Julie, you can speak to a little bit. Usually they wrap them up with discounts, and they talk about you can get discounts to their events. Unfortunately, a lot of Chris Sand says this too. A lot of Brewers Guilds fundraisers are get together events, brew fests, pairing things. So these are things that they're restrained that they can't do, and you can only virtualize all that. But so I would say one member, how does that look? Is that you can go as just not a person who's in the industry like me. I'm just a blogger. You can just become a member. They have not a member as a brewer, but a member as a supporter. Is that am I right there, Julia? On that?
Yeah, most state Brewers Guilds, and we have a list of all 50 state Brewers Guilds on brewersassociation.org. They do have, many of them have, or they're talking about adding an enthusiast type of membership or subscription. And afternoon beer. It definitely makes you want to support them when you hear that, they are not able to keep all their staff that they used to have to represent their interests. So it's worth it. And you do get access to discounts and festivals. And a lot of them are doing virtual fests now. Totally, I think one to consider.
Yep. So Chris is chiming in here. Said last Saturday, Mayor's Brewers Association had a virtual beer festival as a fundraiser. So they're still trooping on. They're still marching on, and it's just amazing. One other thing I wanted to introduce to you is and you probably know this, but Chris during Chris and I's conversation about 2 weeks ago, Chris alerted me to the whole Beer Me app and how. I don't know if you're familiar with this, but there's a brewer in Maryland who made this app for Beer Me, and it's online ordering. And you can get online with your brewery if your brewery implements this, and you can set up a contactless delivery or a pickup or whatever in there. And I was just blown away that he told me that a Maryland brewer came up with this and just basically gave this software away so that the other brewers could benefit from this, because most breweries weren't. I mean, 90, and I'll let you talk and tell me if I'm wrong, but 90, it felt like 98% of them weren't remotely even in the whole online beer thing. They wanted you to show up to a tap room or, go to a distributor. So or I want you to comment on that aspect of it too. But then, do you have any other things that you're seeing that brewers are banding together to get through this?
Second question is a big one, and we'll talk about that in a second. The notion of direct-to-consumer sales, kind of a very businessy term, but DTC, breweries are only allowed to do that pre-COVID in less than 10 states. Wineries, for example, have 48 states of 50 that allow them to ship directly to their customers within that state. And then with the COVID environment, we've had an opening of access to market for brewers to do the delivery, to do the shipping, and to go sales. So it's a really good opportunity to see how things can work. And if beer lovers want to support sales, then we should allow those sales to happen. And it's something that will be an ongoing conversation here forward. Apps that are around and technology that are in existence are very cutting edge. And I think right on the money to help craft brewers and allow them to do sales, because most were not previously set up to do this. You certainly have amazing organizations that are set up to ship, like Tabor is one example. Drizzly is seeing their sales exponentially grow during the COVID era, because we are all now wanting delivery beer to our home. Just like outside my window right now, I have a delivery dinner box, right? I've worked my way through Blue Apron, Home Chef, Plated, all of those, Sunbasket. That's the same thing when you're getting delivery beer, but it happens to be alcohol. Now, certainly you need to make sure that you're 21 and you have methodologies in place for those that are ordering. And breweries need to pay attention to that as they're delivering, is what is their system to keep it legal and safe based on the current laws. But it is a great opportunity to use technology today to ship your beers to beer lovers as it is allowed legally.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, have you? What else have you seen as far as, or have you seen any other community ways that breweries are banding together?
Yeah, big time. I think about, for example, and this is the reverse of the community, but it's a fun one. Paradox Brewing in Colorado, outside of Colorado Springs, they are selling gift cards, for example, and they're encouraging beer lovers to band up as a community that would want to share in the cost of a gift card. The gift card, big dollar amount, $1,000, and yet you get it for $900, so you get $100 savings. That's a reverse example of the community where you could rally and get going on that. Another one is City Star Brewing, who is a town over. By the way, total aside, Greg, since we're on a nice length of time, we can dive into some of the fun details right out that window, right there that I'm pointing at. If I were to walk less than 10 minutes, I would walk to the original Oscar Blues Brewery in Lyons, Colorado. That's where I am talking to you today. Original OB, man. You come through, I'll golf cart you over. We'll go have a beer at the original Oscar Blues, where Juice today is the brewer. I traded him 2 weeks ago some eggs for my chickens for some low fills. Great. Just I love beer and everybody that works in it, and it's so great to know your local brewer. But the town over is Berthoud, and that has a great brewery called City Star. And back to your question on community, when I ordered from Whitney and John as my first brewery out during COVID, I've been chomping at the bit. We've been all self, if you're doing the right thing, you are definitely home distancing, I call it, right? It's not just social distancing. We're distancing at home, but we're getting antsy. And if you're healthy, you need that stimulation and to get out. So in a safe way, I finally picked my first brewery, besides the beer trade with Juice. And I went to City Star and I ordered online on their website. Then I drove up, you text them, you let them know you're coming, and they know when your beer is ready to have pickup. And one of the things through the website ordering in City Star, and let's go to City Star right now, Greg, while we're talking, and it shows you can order a beer for somebody else. So it's a beer at forward concept. And this is $6, and I can order a beer for somebody at City Star. And when they come back to going to City Star, whether to pick up their own beers that they ordered through the website, or when City Star will be finally reopened to customers, they can claim their beer. So it's $6 and you beer it forward. And at the front of the brewery, when you're picking up your beers, you see all these white stickers, the Post-it notes. And those Post-it notes really show you who has ordered beers for what. And you can put a little message. And so you can claim that Post-it note. And so this is City Star. One thing I want you to jump to, though, is the news. Can you go to news real quick? This is one of the best brewery websites that I've seen on the day-to-day. And if we're all able to read this together, Whitney and John, who own it, have kept a day-to-day log, this is it, on their experience through COVID. And what a gem of a historic record of what a brewery that is working in a town that is less than 2,000 people, right? So it's a brewery tap room, a small brewery. Great example of the majority of breweries in the U.S. is a City Star. They're dependent on your business to come by. They don't have a lot of accounts. This is them, getting the news. This is them laying off workers. This is them getting, applying for the PPP relief. It's amazing.
Yeah, and wow, it is. Wow. Look at this. With our pivot to go beer, our revenue is down 32%. And why? I'm gonna ask a question and I'm gonna answer. But why is that important? Well, it's important because people need to know where you are as far as a business goes. Because it's hard, Julie. You said it. You're like my first venture out during COVID. I went to a brewery, and I went to this one. And I'm with you because I find that I'm very, very torn on what breweries that I want to support and what I can. And you can only do so much if you only get out so much. And I get out like once a week to go shopping. That's all I do. My lady has to work she has to work. So she goes out, and then when she's out, she'll come back and she'll say, or she'll say, hey, what brewery can we, what beer can I pick you up? And then we'll slide by and get it. But it's so hard because I want to support 1,700 breweries.
and be good to yourself and get out like we used to.
Right.
I mean, Greg, how are you doing? And how is this? What ways are you using right now to keep yourself sane and your spirits up? And it's a great question to ask each other.
You're literally participating in it.
Yeah.
This is my thing. I started this whole meet my friend, or for you, I wanted to do craft beer week because first of all, I like to make this a tradition. I like to talk to you every craft beer week every year, and we can check in on with each other and see how everything's going, especially after what's going on here. But I've used this as a vehicle to not only reach out to my friends in the industry, but also to push their ideas and what they're doing out there. Last night I talked to Ryan Newhouse from the beer.
Yeah, I saw that. You've been on it. You've had a lot of shows, Greg.
Yeah, but Ryan took me back to our trip, out to Montana, and that was like I got off and I was like, yes, I was just so pumped to be like almost virtually back in Montana, which I had such a fantastic time. I could literally talk 2 more hours about just Montana beer and how much I love it. But this is what I've been using to keep me connected with my friends. And, the whole scheduling thing, you and I went back and forth for a while before we were able to schedule this week. But that, even just in scheduling, I feel that I'm making a connection with you. I'm talking to you. Even if it's just like, hey, we can't do this week. Can we do that week? I don't really care, Julia, because I'm talking to you. So, even if we have to postpone it to August, okay, we'll talk in August. That's great. But it's that connection. And as you said, home distancing is a better term than social distancing because we're all at home. But at the same time, we need to make sure that we have our connections and our friends. So that's my thing. I'm not going to be able to make the BBC this year too. So this was another way for me to channel my friends and to get that energy that I get out of you guys when I go to these conferences. It's just so you guys are so inspirational as a group. It really keeps me moving. So
I love it. What do you answer? Say what?
Well, I'm gonna say okay. So I'm gonna you can answer, and then I want you to answer the question that you posed to me.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, and beer is connection, and so we're seeking that connection now. It's not just connecting with what's in the glass, but when we enjoy the beverage, we're enjoying it usually with each other. I mean, I certainly will enjoy a beverage on my own time too, but it's more fun when you're talking to other people about it, sharing it, looking at it, and on that same page. And so I've been using these virtual chats as well. I've been on so many Zoom calls, and Slack is a technology. Google just came out with a virtual way we can connect, and WebEx and Zoom, and those are the highlights of my week. I just did one the other day, and it was like less than 15 people with the Chicago Brewseum and Liz Garraby. Do you know Liz? She's to the Beer Bloggers Conferences. And Ray Daniels, one of my mentors and the predecessor to my job at the Brewers Association, called in, and we just all chatted it out and had a beer. Some of us had a virtual background up, some of us didn't, but we talked beer history and what's going on. And I think that, A, and B, my normal routine is what's getting me through it, and getting outside. Like, I exercise. It's very important. I've written on this, the importance of balance in the food and beverage that we intake. I have a lot of high energy. I'm kind of a motor that either is on or off, and it really takes a lot to keep me interested. And I think when I exercise, I'm more grounded. And so I exercise, I meditate in the morning, and I take a hot bath. That's great. That's my routine. I did that when I went to work in Boulder at the Brewers Association offices. And I still do that sitting in my Lyons, Colorado office. I still get up at 6:15 and get going. And then at night, I sometimes hopefully always dabble in great food for my family, and sometimes dabble in beverage and allow myself that. And there's my balance. And then the connection and community and discussion with each other is the third tier of that little triangle.
Amen. And it was really interesting. I know you saw a little bit of the conversation I had with Ryan, but Ryan was talking about he lives in Montana, and obviously the virus hits places differently, quicker. Everybody's curve is different and all that. But Ryan was talking about going to a brewery and he was in the tap room, and I was just fascinated by the whole thing where he was, because I had been out to that brewery Drought Works in Missoula, and he was just telling me about how different it was. It's something that I'm going to continue to reference people to, because it's part of that whole idea about having part of the motivation, Julie, for me, is seeing when we're going to be back. It's having that feel of, when I'm going to be able to go back to breweries and hit 5 in a day like I normally do, and enjoy all the people and all the different scenery and all the different scenes from a brewery and the different breweries. It's just great. But I talking to Ryan gave me a little bit of more hope as far as the situation goes, because it was just more like a light in the tunnel. He's like, look, the capacity wasn't what it was. The whole setup was different, but it was just great just being in that environment and just seeing different people around and doing virtual toasts and just that community that you can't, that we're really, really lacking at the moment. So
while you're talking, you're making me think of my experience. My second brewery experience was yesterday, and it is all of us getting used to this and what we experience from each other in the way that our flow through a new physical environment will be. I went to Left Hand to do a Facebook Live that turned into a Twitter Live through my stream at Herz Muses, and Eric Wallace of Left Hand, amazing Eric, greeted me. And I just emailed you a picture of my first ever getting a thermometer to my forehead to get into the building. So it's a picture, and it looks like Eric's like this to me, and it's the thermometer. And they had a whole system, and it came off in the shower, but then they gave me a little stamp on my wrist to show that I had had a thermometer test. And had I failed, frankly, I should have asked them, what do you do if somebody fails and they have a fever? Obviously, you do not let them further engage with you and be in your facility, but do then they go home, or do you tell them to tell the authority? Like, what happens? So it was a new cultural shift that I know will be here forward done at many a establishment, taking your temperature and getting a sense on if you have a fever or not.
Or some places are going to require masks.
Yeah, and I had a mask on. I think our state of Colorado certainly wants us to still, our governor's been great. Stay home 10 miles, if you can, unless it's essential, and wear a mask when you're out. Like that's it. Some states, I don't know, is it California? Maybe not. You are legislated. It might be New York, where you have to have a mask on.
Right.
And, all we can do is hope to take this advice. I saw Jeffrey, speaking of Beer Bloggers Conference, right? Our amazing guy. He was sharing yesterday on Facebook all the things we've been told through the authorities that are a bit confusing and conflicting. And so all we can do is follow what the CDC recommends, pay attention to that. But you want to know, Huck had good points in his post that everything you're doing is based on the best knowledge that our authorities have at this moment in time, but it might have to change. The way we adapt might have to change. 6 feet might turn into 10 feet, right? One day. Wearing a mask might turn into only this style of mask because it does certain things and has a certain material that protects us. We have to be patient with that and do only what we have been made to understand works, and then be available to adjust.
Amen. So Julia, I before I knew you and before I could call you a friend, the thing that really grabbed me about you was your knowledge and your acceptance of the facts that are put in front of you, and you're able to give them back. So I know you're not as prepared as you are for the BBC intro that you always do. And for people who haven't been to the BBC, the Beer Bloggers Conference, or it's called Beer Now, Julie gives usually the opening presentation, and she gives kind of a state of the craft beer industry. So Julie is not prepared for probably what I'm about to ask her, but I'm just giving it a precedence because I'm just used to Julia walking on stage with a whole bunch of slides and giving the facts, and I love it. I am a fact wonk geek. As anybody that knows me personally, I like the numbers, especially in political wise. I like numbers, I like polls, I like facts. I want to hear it all. So I have to ask you, and it took me a while to get to this. It actually took me a half an hour. I thought it was going to be my first question or my second one. Where you hear a lot of different things. Speaking of, a lot of different things we hear a lot of different things about where the craft beer industry is going to be after this, or going to be soon, or breweries dropping, or us losing some because of the pandemic and the economics and the budgeting and all that is involved. What are you hearing, and what can you say as far as the data that you're seeing about all this? There was a CBS thing that really scared a whole bunch of people, and I know it scared a whole bunch of people, Julie, because I got a whole bunch of DMs and messages about what's up with this CBS article that says that we're going to lose 50% of our breweries. And I was like, that was during the time that me and you were going back and forth as far as trying to schedule this. So I was like, this was top of mind for me as far as asking you. So what are you seeing, and what are you feeling, or any of that?
Great, timely question. And to your last point, first of all, no data is definitive until it's done and in the bank. Take stock prices. You're not going to sell your stock at a certain dollar amount until you get that dollar amount confirmed by a buyer that will pay you, right? So that's important. So just take with a grain of salt all the prediction stuff that you're hearing right now. But it is sobering times. We've done 2 impact surveys. We have on April 7th released the results of the second one. On that second one, more than 500 breweries replied to our survey and told us that they did not think they could make it, or 46%, forgive me, of those 500 breweries did not think that they could make it more than 1 to 3 months. That is a scary, sobering stat for a craft beer community that got to 8,300 plus breweries in 2019 collectively. And so what are we looking at for the number of breweries that actually won't reopen? We don't know right now. We are not putting a number on it, but craft sales, I can tell you, probably a quarter off, give or take, of 25%, give or take, of normal craft beer volume sales Sales by volume is what we're down and seeing since COVID. But beer sales up as a category are there and up. Beer sales overall are up. But then you have to parse it out, right? How much of that are the big beer legacy brands and how much of that are regional craft brewers? The taproom brewers are in a tough spot. The draft sales, which is responsible, 40 to 50% of draft is responsible for the sales and the way beer is sold by craft brewers. Then you have bottles and cans. So 40 to 50% of draft sales have essentially come to a halt at on-premise, right? The restaurants. And then the tap rooms in 2018, and I need to look for 2019, but 3.1 million barrels of beer of 20 plus million barrels for the craft segment were sold directly at tap rooms. And so those tap room sales have not halted because many breweries were able to pivot with the new access to market. But most breweries are only getting about a third, if they're lucky, of the normal sales that they would have for the to-go sales to make up what they would normally be selling right on premise. So that's a lot of stats. The prediction game, like I said, is dangerous, but I will tell you the craft brewing community will not be the same. We will lose many breweries. And the point back to the whole, jovial part of American Craft Beer Week and buying yourself a beer, you can commit to give, #give craft beer yourself, or buy it for somebody else, is that these breweries need cash flow, as you said, right now the most. And so committing to give a 6-pack, a crowler, a growler right now can make the difference if we all do that collectively.
Amen. And thanks for that, Julia, because I trust your knowledge and your stats more than anything I hear out on Reddit or whatever. I mean, you gotta, fake news, respectfully, fake news is everywhere. So you have to really make sure that you go to the source. And I have waited patiently to talk to you. So thank you for those numbers. But it also really, really reinforces what we talked about before, which is and we've been talking, this has kind of been a theme when I talk to brew people, buy beer from your brewery. And really, maybe you should think about it in a way that, like, this might be the last time I have this beer, or this might be the last time I have this. I know it's kind of, I don't want to think about it in that way, but ultimately, sometimes I feel that, like, somebody, I know this is kind of grim, but, like, sometimes we relish people after they die more than we do when they're living. Like, we love Prince more when he passed out, than right before he died.
I literally just thought of Prince today, believe it or not.
Yes. But you know what I'm saying? Sometimes the appreciation doesn't come until after we lose something. You don't know what you got until it's gone. One of those things. And they're not all gone yet. So they're still there trying to tread water. So again, when you can, do what you can. But I mean, I talked to 2 days ago, I talked to a brewer of Parch Eagle Brew Pub. It's a small brew pub here in Madison. It's the place where I first started. And he said to me very, very definitively that A, he's good, they're going to make it through. And B, the reason is because the locals, and I'm not the locals, the regulars have stepped up and have come in and just bought all his beer. He's like, I have New Glarus here, and I'm sure you probably saw the story about them having to dump beer. New Glarus is obviously on the top end of the scale here in Wisconsin. With all due respect to Parch Eagle, they're definitely on the lower end as far as barrels produced. So obviously, bigger brewery, bigger problems. But ultimately, though, I was really heartened to hear that at least him as a small brewery, his regulars were able to keep them propelled through this. So there is a lot of that going on, Julia, for sure. And I think sometimes when the brewers took that survey, and that's why that's just a survey, and we'll see how it all works out. Maybe some of them weren't anticipating the amount of support that they were getting, and then some of them, keeping it real, just aren't getting that support. So it's really, really a fascinating yet frustrating thing for me to look at.
Yeah. And some of them have gotten sick. Some of them chosen to close and not reopen. Sick, I think of Trinity Brewing in Colorado Springs. Their owner, has COVID, and he did all he could to, protect himself. I think of Bagby Brewing in earlier March. He has a blog post, Bagby Brewing, The Impossible Choice is the name of the blog post. And it was, we're closing down and we don't plan to reopen until we know how we can fully keep our employees and our customers guaranteed safe. There's no guarantees, though. You can't go to the grocery store with guarantees. So eventually all breweries that want to stay in business will reopen their doors. Brewersassociation.org, we published a checklist, a reopening checklist, which is key. I could share screen and even show it to you right now.
Yeah.
All right, let me see if I can take over here. Friendly heads up. Let's see if it works.
It should.
Okay, your entire screen. Yes. Is it sharing right now?
There we go.
Okay, so our coronavirus resources on brewersassociation.org have all been built since March 13th, which is amazing. And if you're a brewer, actually, and a little geeky for beer lovers, but most people, Greg, listening to you and I are certainly stakeholders in some way, or we see ourselves as stakeholders in the community of beer. Here's the impact survey results and polls. And then for on-premise establishments, what I'm getting at, besides all the stuff for brewery businesses where they have to deal with everything from reopening their draft lines to shutting them down and employee type of handling, is this reopening checklist. And this is powerful because it talks about all the steps that you might want to take as a brewery to ensure that you are doing what you can to keep your staff safe and yourself safe, and then that will trickle out to your customers. I'll cruise you through that real slowly.
Yeah, and this is going to be very important going forward. And this is why, I'm sorry, I forgot, what was that? Who was that brewery that like had that news about all their things and you could just go there and see that? That's I think it's still up on my tab here. City
Star. Yeah, City Star.
Again, that accenting why that's very important, Julia, about how you're keeping it they're keeping it, quote unquote, keeping it real and keeping it out there, because I believe a lot of people are going to make these steps when they're going to want some of these answers when it's time for them to go back. And that's going to be important for a brewery to say, hey, look, this is what we're doing. This is what we got. Ryan was telling me that was part of like the Droughtworks thing, was that like he felt safe enough to go there. So there's absolutely going to be that aspect for sure. And it's great that the Brewers Association is giving guidance to this. That's fantastic, in my opinion. And I didn't know that. So thanks for enlightening that for sure.
Yeah, the COVID resources where I took you to brewersassociation.org are free to all. It's not membership required. And it is right now about giving to the community so the community continue to grow and thrive and survive. We don't know what things look like after this. And what we do, even on the safety side, our membership resources for safety, saving lives and livelihoods of brewers have always been free and accessible to non-members. So there's certain content that we do to have locked down for membership, but when it comes to lifting up the entire community of craft brewers, we have many, many resources and efforts that I think for decades now have fueled and lifted up. And American Home Brewers Association, Greg, is a whole nother one. Anybody listening been home brewing, right? That's such a great opportunity. May 2nd was Big Brew, and I missed it because my husband and I agreed to go camping. I was kind of like really feeling kind of stir crazy. And instead of brewing, I got the opportunity to go camping, and it was such a great relief. So I now still have this recipe that Charlie Pazian gave me to brew, and I'm going to brew it. But I just missed Big Brew. And that opportunity to home brew right now, and you could do 1 gallon batches or 10 gallon batches, depending on interest level and equipment. That's another great way to spend some quality time at a hobby that's rewarding, is home brewing. And homebrewersassociation.org is a great website with lots of free recipes and opportunities to brew.
Absolutely, and I haven't mentioned that. That's fantastic. Julia, so can I take you somewhere totally different than this?
Yeah.
Okay, so and I know you know about this too because you were the one who put it on many people's radars, or not maybe many people's radar. You accented this last year in Montana, which is seltzers. Are they still? Are we still seeing what you were telling us last year in Montana, which was they're not a fad, they're here to stay, and we have to be aware of it.
Seltzers continue to grow in sales. I don't have the scan data sell sheets up, which is that UPC code where you're at a grocery store and you would scan it, and that tells us one form because many brew pubs and microbreweries too are doing seltzer. But the sales continue to rise. And so during COVID, I think what people are doing is buying whatever's available to them when they do go to a liquor store, unless they're going directly to a brewery. Beer sales are number one. Beer's not going anywhere. But seltzer's definitely become its own category, hard seltzer. And it is, we're also seeing line extensions of hard seltzer now starting to dabble in actually being somewhat of a mixer for cocktails. And how is that going to be where you use the sparkling flavored seltzer in a pre-packaged form to emulate cocktail flavors such as gin and tonics, such as old fashions. So not just the fruited seltzers like LaCroix, but with alcohol, usually 5% or so, but now more line extensions of these brands. So that continues to grow as a category within beer, and we're going to continue to for that. Sensory-wise, they're not. A lot of beer lovers steer clear. They're not very deep in flavor and complexity. They're very straightforward. But they certainly have a lot of interest, and the sales are rising.
Yeah, and I see a lot of breweries still doing them, especially when I do my little turn here. As far as who I'm going, I look at. I'm all over breweries' websites now, especially my local ones, to see what they're selling. With the what I get curbside and all that, and I still see the seltzers there. They're not going away. I don't really care if they go away or not. I just want as long as breweries are, making it work for them, I think it's fantastic. So, Julie, another question. So, are you seeing any, or do you have any data or anything about style fluctuations during COVID? Are people going to, there's this thing I think where I see like people are, I'm drinking lagers more, or I'm going back to the free drinking beers, meaning I'm going back to when, Miller Lite, and the beer baron here was talking about his love of Miller Lite, and I've heard people talk about, I'm going, I picked up a 6-pack of Pabst for the first time, and I actually enjoyed it. Do you see any, or any anecdotal evidence or any real evidence of people changing styles during this?
One of the biggest trends that we're seeing in sales data via scan, at least, again back to that UPC code, is that the tried and tested heritage brands are gaining traction. So people are going back to what they know most. And when you walk into a store, if you're walking into it, and I've certainly walked into liquor stores since COVID hit, I want in and out of that store quick. I'm not lingering. I'm not, I walk into a liquor store, my heart rate rises. I'm shopping, I get excitement. It's fun. Not the lingering type of shopping going on. It's quick hit and go. So you go with, and we're noticing for sales, people are going with the brands that they already recognize the most. So the established brands are having a bit of a heyday. The bigger those brands are, if you talk to regional craft brewers, it's a bit of a mixed bag. Some of their brands are having heyday and others are having a hard time. And then the smaller the brewery you are and the less recognition you have for those beer brands, then they are going to require knowledge and somebody, taking a chance on something that they haven't had, which is frankly the way most craft beer sales grew, right? There was that halo effect. You might have known Sierra Nevada Pale Ale, but then you told yourself, oh, I'm going to try Celebration. And so you branch out. Then maybe I'll try Torpedo, right? Then maybe I'll try the Juicy or Hazy from Sierra. Oh, wow, maybe I'll try that Pilsner from Sierra. So it's that halo effect of sales that really trickled down and allowed craft to grow. And that's still going on, but the biggest trend I'm seeing is variety packs for sure, and the heritage brands.
Yeah. I you would think that COVID would change the way that people drink. Clearly, and obviously, we're drinking, quote, less social, but I don't even know if that's true if you factor in the Zoom virtual, world that we're talking about too. I mean, I think there's a lot of actually community drinking going on, and we just don't count that. It's almost like for a while we didn't count online dating. You know what I mean? It's like, that's not real. And then like 10 years later, we're like, you see the stats of all the people who are happily married who are still online dating. Then you're like, oh, that really is a legitimate thing. So like, I don't think we put in our heads that virtual Zooms are actually times where we literally are having a beer together. It's just not together like we know it.
Yeah, everything shifted. It's hard to process.
So yeah, it is crazy. So one of the things I absolutely have to talk to you before we go is your wonderful, fantastic. I absolutely love this book. Full disclosure, I have not gotten through it all, but on some level, I want to tell everybody that I don't, respect to you, Julia, I don't feel I have to get through it all. And I'll explain why. If you read this book, the first 66 pages of it have nothing to do with beer pairing. I mean, not nothing, but it's about the science of beer. It's about the sensory, the aura, your taste buds, your smelling, everything about it is science in the first half of this book, or first quarter of this book. The book is 200 pages long. The first 66 pages are just science. I'm a science guy and I love it. But the rest of the book is about beer pairing. And the reason I don't think you need to read this whole book from front to beginning is because once you get to the beer pairing thing, this tells you everything you need to know. You pick out a style, you flip to it, you read about the style, and then Julia and her comrade here, Gwen Conley, yeah, they tell you, basically they lay it out right there. Drink this, try this. Drink this, try this. So whatever your favorite style is, you can find it in here. And then they just get into, I'm going to let you talk in a second, Julia, but I love this book so much. They get into, so I don't think that I'll ever like read it from front to back, but I will read probably
it's not a novel.
Yes, it is amazing. But let me I should have it open. So not only is it just food, it's cheese, it's chocolate, it's ice cream, it's cake, it's chips and dip, it's pizza, it's wings, it's everything I like. So there is a segment, I don't know, Julie, maybe you can speak to that too. There's a segment of people who, I don't know if the word is don't believe in beer pairing, but some people just aren't convinced. And if you aren't convinced, you need to buy this book. You will be convinced. I will just let I'll let the author of the book talk, but I can't say enough about it.
That's so great. I'm glad you are finding value and using it as a reference, and it does lay out in multiple chapters. If you need that base of the science behind beer, go for it, read the beginning part, or skip through and go to the 25 beer styles that we outline and take you to home run pairings. And I think the biggest thing this book does that I've been rewarded, 10,000 plus copies out in the space, is that people say that it finally helps them understand how to articulate what they are perceiving when they pair beer and food. Mm-hmm. And I'll break it down for you. I'll give you the super quick hit. And in the book, it has everything from beer pairing in a nutshell and the 6 steps. That's super good, real value for retailers and beer educators and geeks like us. But how to articulate what you are perceiving, right? And anything you taste or drink, it's not a no-brainer. You have to understand that flavor is a fusion, and flavor is actually a triangle of 3 things. It's aroma, basic taste, which basic taste is sweet, salty, sour, bitter, umami, and emerging is oleogustus or fat. And then that third tier of the triangle is mouthfeel, temperatures, textures, and pain. Pain would be capsation, heat. Temperatures is how cold your beer is or how hot your food is. And textures is the key in pairing to me, is that crunchy factor, right? Or that creamy factor. And so that is all, if you take aromatic compounds that are volatile and basic taste and the mouthfeel, and you can identify that in your beer, and then you can identify that in your food and see how they work with each other or against each other. Then you can start to verbalize what's going on when you actually are pairing. And the way to verbalize it is it a home run for you? does the food make the beer better? And the beer makes the food better. That's 1 + 1 = 5. That's a home run pairing. Or does the food not necessarily make the beer better? The beer doesn't necessarily make the food better, but they don't take away from each other. That's a middle of the road pairing based on interactions. And then there can be negative interactions that are unpleasant, counter interactions that you don't like, right? A really sour, acidic beer, clashed terribly with those Brussels sprouts. That is, a train wreck of an interaction, and those are teaching moments. And so we have these physiological responses to what's going on when we intake food or beverage, and being able to describe those, and I call it the mind to palate connection. Your palate just perceives. It perceives those aromatic compounds with what's going on in your retronasal passages and what you're smelling on the inside of your mouth that your retronasal passages perceive. And that is part of what you can describe, what the palate and the soft palate and the basic taste. Are you getting sweet, salty, sour, bitter, umami, or a sense of fat and heaviness on the tongue? Well, describe that. Use words to describe that. And then the last piece on the mind part for the palate is it writes a story, and it can describe the interactions between those basic tastes of beverage and beer and food, all being perceived at once. And now I've kind of talked way too long, but describing home run, middle of the road or train wreck, what type of interaction you're actually getting, and if it's pleasant to you, and labeling that is the very first step to the whole point of beer pairing. And I'll tell you what, wine pairing has created many an enjoyable moment over the centuries, and so has beer pairing. And it's time to give beer pairing its day. I will close on this topic with the fact that kilned and roasted malts and those flavors from malted barley, everything from graham cracker and soda cracker notes, right? Light kilned Pilsner malt, all the way to dark roasted malts, getting more into cashews, and then burnt and acrid notes with darker malts for sure. Those malt notes are so synergistic with grilled, roasted, and smoked meats. And so I think that's key too, is remembering the harmonies, the flavor echoes, the bridges of beer to food. And then beer has carbonation, it has hops, which is like spices, for a chef. And so how hops bring things to the table. It has esters and phenols from the yeast, and how those flavors of everything from clove and vanilla to strawberries and raspberries weave into the food. You've got so much potential in beer pairing for synergies.
Oh man, and for the people who are at Beer Now and Milwaukee, in Montana, there was one in Milwaukee too, but that's not what I'm talking about. In Montana, Julia gave a wonderful presentation about beer and cheese pairing.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And literally, I was on the phone with my family while you were doing this, saying we're going to be doing more cheeses at the house, and we've done way more cheese plates. Yes, we've done so many more cheese plates than we did before, and this has been great. But also, there isn't a better time, Julia, for, in my opinion, this, which is food and beer pairing. There's no better time, because you can pretty much get any of these ingredients anywhere. You can get it while you're out, and while you're at home, it's just something that you can do that's fun, that takes you out of monotony of just sitting at home, having a beer and having some cheese there, and just really tasting both of them and having that sensory moment. I didn't, again, until we went through that, I didn't get beer pairing, honestly, until we went through that presentation that we did last year. I mean, not that I didn't get it, I got it, but like not to the extent that you talk about and to the level that you get into, especially on this book and obviously in this conversation.
Yeah, and you trigger the palate trip section. So one of my favorite things to get to know beer and food is do a palate trip, a plate of strategic foods that have, different defined basic tastes and aromatic compounds and mouthfeels, and then pair them with beers. And like we have 6 of these in the book diagrammed to take you through it. And it's all about self-discovery, and then again, applying those words to what you do discover and how the mind to palate connection will really trigger what you're doing. But it's fun. Palate trips are one of my most favorite ways to spend time when talking beer.
I got to make sure next time I see you, I got to get this. I got to get this signed. But and also I don't know if you've seen. You probably have. There are breweries. People pay attention a little bit. There are breweries doing virtual beer pairing tastings. I know that Giant Jones Brewing here in Madison is doing some of them. So I'm sure that they're not the only ones that are doing these virtual ones. And also, Julie, I'm not sure if you saw our my talk with Owen Ogletree. Him and Carrie are doing they're helping breweries do food pairing dinners.
Awesome. Yeah, they're total foodies. I did not catch that, but I will watch it, Greg. And what you do is so important for Daddy Porter's work. And I will make sure, because Owen and Carrie are really well known, and they certainly know beer and food.
Yeah. So there are, my overall point about that is that there are breweries doing a lot of these different food and pairing things. And I want to leave you with one of the things that my lady says here, which is, she literally said it yesterday. I don't know if I want to eat. I don't know if I want to get takeout from anywhere but a brewery. And that's because the brewery food that we've had during COVID, takeout, curbside, has been better than the restaurants. Sorry, Madison, it's been true. Vintage Brewing, Carbon 4. Today, I think we're going to do maybe Ale Asylum. The food that they're serving out of these breweries has been fantastic. And it's been so much that my lady, who's not even a beer person, says, I'll go get your beer, and then I can get food, and we'll all be happy. So breweries are really bringing it up, or maybe breweries have had it at a high level, and we're just understanding it now during COVID. I don't know if you want to talk about at the end here, breweries and food. And again, breweries have really, really brought it up food-wise lately. They just really have.
Yeah, and breweries have such an amazing relationship to food. Of the 8,000 existence in 2019, it's about 2,000 microbreweries and 2,000 brew pubs. And so you've got many of those microbreweries that have food trucks, right? Mm-hmm. Their food trucks are there, strategically invited to serve. And then the brew pubs themselves are restaurant breweries. So it's huge to understand that beer is a part of the food arts world. It is a beverage that craft beer has brought beer's place back to the dinner table and pairing, and that's exciting. Not just about American lager anymore, which is an amazing style in itself, but it's about the expanded group of styles. And at the Brewers Association, who I'm with, we represent we document more than 160 world beer styles. And most of those are being made today. So it's about getting to know what's in that beer, what style it may or may not be tied to, but flavor components, and then what's in the food, and then enjoying it together or tweaking it because they didn't work together very well.
Excellent. So, Julia, I just want to leave you with a couple comments that we have collected over the hour because we were gabbing and I couldn't get them in. So, Brewdad is in the house.
Nice.
Zach Rosen says that Julia's presentations are always one of the highlights of the conference.
Hi, Zach. It was so great to spend time at the last conference, and just great to hear that both of you are watching.
Yeah, Zach and I hopefully Zach's going to be right where you're at in a couple days or soon. I got to talk to him, but he's fantastic, as we already know. Chris Sand says he helped with a full virtual beer dinner this week. And he said they filmed the video with instructions on the meal prep, and then did a live Q&A stream that evening. The pub separated each course into bags with the pairing. It was delivered Blue Apron style prep.
That is, and what Chris is pointing out is an incredible model that we're going to continue to see more. And it puts us directly in the connection of the purveyor of the food and drink that we enjoy. I love it, and the fact that they filmed it and you can watch it later or stream it live, that's pretty damn cool. And I've been seeing that model happen with restaurants and breweries.
Yes. Mercy Beers says, good evening from the UK.
Hi, Mercy Beers.
Daniel says, so great to see and hear you, Julia. Cheers.
Hi, Daniel.
And that's Zach saying hi, Julia. So, Julia, I want to thank you as much as I can possibly thank you for giving us the time, for talking to the people that, follow me. We have so many questions. So it was just fantastic of you to take your time for us. And, again, you let me feel a little bit more at ease about what's going on, actually. So I'm really happy about that. So you helped me personally.
Yeah, that's huge, Greg. And thank you. I look forward to this time and this hour. Keep up the great work, and be kind to yourselves. It is a really hard time. There's a lot of stress, a lot of uncertainty, a lot of loss of livelihoods and layoffs, and closures. But there's a lot of bright spots, and I think rounding it back to those bright spots, and that's what we've been trying to do with American Craft Beer Week, is find the bright spots and allow breweries to shine in ways that they already do, to remind the world, besides saying thank you to their customers, but to remind the world of where they've been inspired and what keeps them going. Then the whole circle can kind of keep rolling along, and hopefully their doors stay open.
Thank you for your time, and you guys can reach Julia at Twitter. I put it right there, Herz Muses. She's very accessible there, so you can check her out there. Obviously, you can check her out, anywhere. She touches a lot of stuff that comes out of the Brewers Association, especially as far as the craft beer goes. So, Julia, thank you for your time. Stay safe, and we'll talk to you soon. And yeah, let's all stay kind and keep going through.
Right on, Greg. Have a great rest of your day. Thanks for the chance to chat. I really enjoyed it. And goodbye to your listeners, and I'll be seeing you guys online and one day in person for a beer soon.
Excellent. The pleasure was all mine. Thanks, Julia. We'll talk to you soon.
Peace out.
Yay! That was amazing and fun. And man, these hours go by so fast. I told Julia I only take an hour with her. It was an hour and 3, so I got out pretty good. But yeah, Julia is amazing. She's as approachable and fun as she's here. I can't say enough about the wonderful people that I meet at the Beer Now conference. I've been able to show you guys some of them. I'm going to continue to do that until whenever my list stops. But so tonight we're going to be doing something a little different. We're going to talk to my friend Vicky from Vicky's Cookies. She was a moderator in the group for the longest time. I don't know if you're familiar with the Daddy Porter Beer Group, but we don't have really many things going on in there as far as things that need to be moderated. So you probably didn't hear Vicky or see Vicky, but Vicky was behind the scenes with us for a bunch of years. She's a craft beer lover. She's a cookie lover. She makes cookies. She makes fantastic cookies. So we're going to see those tonight. We're actually going to give away some beer-themed cookies. So you need to be a member of the group, or no. You need to comment on the stream anywhere you see it. That's the answer. So you don't have to be a member of the group. So if you see us on Twitter, you can comment there. You see us on YouTube, you can comment there. Comment, suggest, talk. You'll be entered in a random drawing to win Vicky's Cookies that will be delivered to your house. I was going to say contactless, but someone's going to have to move someone's going to have to touch the cookies in order to get in your house. But but it'll be contactless from the point of, us giving it to you. But no, Vicky's ready to ship them out. I'm pretty sure she's going to have them ready, and you can see them tonight. So we're going to have fun talking about cookies. And just a good friend of mine. I'm just another friend that I want to meet. Not necessarily everybody's going to be a beer person, but obviously I'm a beer guy, beer vlogger. So we're going to have many beer people, but we're going to be able to talk to Vicky about beer, and Doug's going to be with me, and Doug and Vicky have a quote history, so they know each other. So that'll be fun exploring that. So then this week, then on Friday, we have April Newly Me and Tony Two Pint. Somebody said they sound like gangsters, or those are their gangster names. No, these two ladies are going to be fun to talk to. April has her own YouTube channel that she started about a year ago, and clearly she's doing something right. She's got over 1,000 people subscribe to her. But Tony Two Pint, they both rep beer culture on Twitter, so if you want to look there, and they're very, very outspoken about diversity and craft beer and the bridges that we have to gap and the shit that's wrong with the diversity of craft beer, and how we can change all that. And they just bring a very, very valuable point of view to it. So we're going to have a very, very interesting discussion about beer diversity on Friday, and we're also going to have 7 beers and live through the pandemic with you guys. So I'm done babbling, but I'm just kind of still buzzing from that interview with Julia. I again the amount of knowledge and industry just that she has is just great. So I'll be buzzing the rest of the afternoon until we get some cookies. But thinking about hopefully going to be doing some curbside here. So check my Instagram and my other check my social media feeds if you want to see that. Going to do some curbside, and then we'll see how that turns out. Support your local breweries, support your family, support your friends. We're all in this together, even though that's kind of a cliche thing that I know some people are getting tired of hearing, but it's the truth, though. It's the truth. So I'm done preaching. I'll see you guys tonight, 8 p.m. Central, with Doug and Vicky. Thanks for being a part of my therapy for getting through the pandemic. All of you guys we're all, again, the cliche sucks, but we're all in it together. And this is you guys supporting me, and meeting my friends is helping me get through it. And hopefully it just takes you out of this for at least 20 minutes that you watch this, that you can at least be like, oh, it's cool. And you don't have to spend all day worried about the pandemic. You can jump in with me and have a beer. So I'll see you guys later this evening.